Bonjour. Bonjour tout le monde. Last week, I visited Ukraine to reaffirm Canada's unwavering support and to meet with my Ukrainian counterpart, Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov. And I saw firsthand the devastation that Russia's unconscionable invasion has caused. And when we met in Kyiv, Minister Reznikov was clear. Ukraine's armed forces need more equipment, and they need it quickly. President Zelensky reiterated this urgency at last Friday's Defense Contact Group meeting that I attended in Germany, with approximately 50 of my defense minister counterparts from around the world. President Zelensky asked specifically for tanks, and that is what I am here to discuss. Aujourd'hui, j'annonce que le Canada va fournir à l'Ukraine 4 chars Leopard 2, ce dont, combiné aux contributions des alliés et des partenaires, aidera les forces armées de l'Ukraine qui se battent pour défendre la liberté et la souveraineté de leur pays. Ces véhicules blindés et protégés de grande qualité offrent aux soldats un avantage tactique sur le champ de bataille grâce à leur excellente mobilité, leur puissance de feu et leur capacité de survie. Le Canada va déployer également un nombre de membres des forces armées canadiennes afin d'aider les soldats ukrainiens à acquérir les compétences nécessaires pour utiliser cet équipement en attendant la coordination avec les alliés. Today, I am announcing that Canada will supply Ukraine with 4 Leopard 2 main battle tanks in the coming weeks. This donation, combined with the contributions of allies and partners, will significantly help the armed forces of Ukraine as they fight heroically to defend their nation's freedom and sovereignty. These heavily armored and highly protected vehicles provide soldiers with a tactical advantage on the battlefield, thanks to their excellent mobility, their firepower, and their survivability. These tanks will allow Ukraine to liberate even more of its territory and defend its people from Russia's brutal invasion. These 4 tanks are combat-ready and will be deployed over the coming weeks. We will also deploy a number of Canadian Armed Forces members to train Ukrainian soldiers with the skills they need to operate this equipment, pending coordination with allies. As you know, today's announcement means that Canada is among several like-minded allies and partners donating Western battle tanks to Ukraine. And given the complexity of operating these tanks, it is more important than ever that we coordinate our efforts tightly. Tanks are not easy to maintain, but their sustainment will be essential to Ukraine's overall success and victory. To that end, we are working closely with our international allies and partners to pool ammunition and spare parts. Today, immediately following this press conference, I will speak with my counterparts from Germany, from Finland, from Portugal and Spain, as well as the Netherlands, to discuss how we can collaborate to ensure the long-term success of our donations. Although I am announcing the donation of 4 tanks today, this number may grow as we coordinate donation and sustainment plans with our allies. Bien que j'annonce aujourd'hui l'envoi de 4 chars, ce nombre pourrait augmenter au fur et à mesure que nous coordonnons les plans de donation et de soutien avec nos alliés. I will emphasize as well that the number of Leopards that we are donating has been carefully considered in order to ensure that our own Army has the tanks needed to maintain our own readiness, to train, and to meet Canada's NATO commitments under Operation Reassurance. As we make this donation, I will also express my sincere and heartfelt appreciation to the many members of Canada's Armoured Corps and REMI Corps who have dedicated their careers to operating and maintaining these tanks. Your tremendous efforts have been and will continue to be vital for the readiness of this combat capability. Je conclurai en disant que l'engagement du Canada à soutenir l'Ukraine est résolu. Nous continuerons de travailler avec nos alliés et d'évaluer d'autres possibilités d'envoyer de l'aide militaire. We have committed over $1 billion in comprehensive military aid, from a NASAMS air defense system to 200 armored personnel carriers that I pledged in Kyiv, Ukraine last week. The bottom line is that our support continues now and until Ukraine wins. In short, Ukraine's sovereignty matters, rules matter, and freedom matters. Ukraine's fight to defend itself is also a fight to uphold the international rules-based order that has kept us all safe since the end of the Second World War. And that is why Canada's support will continue. Maintenant, je pourrais recevoir vos questions et je suis ici avec le chef d'état-major de la Défense et il peut répondre aussi. Merci.
Il y en a combien de chars Léopard qui sont opérationnels dans l'inventaire canadien et pouvez-vous nous donner une idée de combien de plus on pourrait en envoyer éventuellement?
Maintenant, l'armée canadienne dispose de 82 chars de combat principaux, Leopard 2, dans 3 variantes. Et l'armée canadienne dispose également de 30 véhicules de génie et de récupération Leopard pour assurer la mobilité de la flotte de véhicules de combat. Et aussi, c'est important de souvenir...
Il y en a combien qui fonctionnent? C'est plutôt ça ma question.
Les chars sont très complexes comme véhicules blindés. Et c'est important de se souvenir qu'ils sont des étapes, des stages différents de maintenance. Donc, nous continuons de maintenir ces véhicules et ça, c'est très important d'avoir l'entretien nécessaire pour maintenir les chars en état de fonctionnement. C'est un processus.
Pouvez-vous nous dire à peu près combien on serait prêt à en envoyer?
C'est un processus de s'assurer ça. Mais à ce moment, c'est important de se souvenir que nous pouvons livrer 4 chars à ce moment avec nos alliés. Et ça veut dire une plateforme avec nos alliés de s'assurer l'interopérabilité et aussi l'équipement nécessaire de continuer d'avoir l'aide nécessaire avec nos alliés et pour l'Ukraine.
What does it say about Canada's readiness if we can only send 4 of 82 when other allies, look at Poland, are sending 14 of the Leopard 2 tanks and they're roughly the same size as us?
Well, I think it's important to remember that the announcement I am making today about 4 tanks comes with spare parts, ammunition, and training. Furthermore, there is a possibility that this number could grow based on the conversations that I am having with our allies and our ability to ensure that we have the spare parts and the sustainment necessary to continue to allow further support, further donations, etc. But I will say, and in close collaboration with the CDS here beside me, that we need to make sure that our Army has the right number of tanks to train and to meet our NATO commitments also. So there is the possibility of further donations. I am here to say today that we will undertake 4 donations in the coming weeks. I am leaving this press conference to go speak with our allies about how we can ensure the delivery of spare parts and the interoperability and the common platform that is necessary to ensure the capabilities are sustained. If I could just say one more thing. So I've been participating in the Ramstein group of countries for almost a year now. And at the very first meeting, I made the point that we need to have a common platform across our allies so that we provide effective capabilities to Ukraine that are usable on the battlefield. And that means not only the capability in terms of the tank itself, but it also means training, and it also means maintenance and support. So when I announced the 200 vehicles, for example, that donation didn't just come with the donation of the vehicles. It also comes with training and maintenance support. So this is the type of approach we are taking collectively with our allies, ensuring that we have a platform of vehicles that will be important for their readiness in terms of their victories, which we've already seen in the north, in the east, and in the south.
Vous êtes prête à monter jusqu'à combien? Quelle est votre marge de manœuvre? Puis est-ce que l'envoi de chars de combat, c'est la dernière ligne que vous tracez, ou par exemple, comme les Pays-Bas, vous pourriez peut-être songer à envoyer des avions de chasse?
C'est important pour nous de se souvenir que nous allons être pour l'Ukraine, pour la souveraineté de l'Ukraine, pour la sécurité de l'Ukraine, dans le court et le long terme, avec l'aide militaire nécessaire de gagner cette guerre. Donc, nous continuons de chercher qu'est-ce que nous pouvons faire pour l'Ukraine. À ce moment, c'est 4 chars. La semaine passée, c'était 200 véhicules blindés. Et la semaine avant ça, c'était un NASAMS Defense System. Donc, nous sommes ici avec l'aide militaire importante, cruciale pour l'Ukraine.
Je comprends, mais vous êtes prêt à monter, quelle est la marge de manœuvre? Vous êtes prête à monter jusqu'à 5 chars, 6 chars, 8, 20? Et puis, les avions de chasse, est-ce que c'est une option ou est-ce que vous l'écartez?
Le nombre de chars, l'aide militaire, ça, c'est une décision très importante pour nous. Nous devons s'assurer que nous pouvons le livrer dans le court terme, et ça, c'est le cas avec le 4 chars. Et aussi, nous devons avoir les conversations, l'analyse avec nos alliés. Et ça c'est le cas aujourd'hui aussi. Je vais partir d'ici dans un moment et je vais discuter le nombre, l'interopérabilité, les pièces de rechange avec nos alliés. Donc, c'est un processus, mais la chose la plus importante aujourd'hui, et le Canada est ici, est là pour l'Ukraine.
What training are you sending? Are these tanks used in training? Are they
send without degrading the Army's operational capability, and how quickly will your government replace those tanks?
We will replace the tanks as soon as possible, and as you may know, we are undertaking the defense policy update to ensure at all times that the Canadian Armed Forces have the capabilities that they need to defend this country and to remain in a state of readiness. We are so fortunate today to have the Chief of Defense Staff with us, who is the former commander of the Army, as well as the commander of 3rd Division in Western Canada, and I'll ask him if he would like to speak to this issue as well.
So I would just like to speak to the number of tanks and some of the factors that went into that. You know, firstly, we have to take a look at the size of our fleet, and compared to many of our European allies, our fleet is relatively small. There are several thousand of these tanks in Europe. We also have to take a look at serviceability rates, and the tanks that we are sending are serviceable. They are ready. We also have to take a look at the sense of urgency that is required to get these over. Remember, we live in North America, and to get a 62-ton tank over there, it's going to take some doing. So over the last number of weeks, we've been planning, working behind the scenes to rapidly get this capability over there. Probably going to do it with our C-17s. Remember, we can only carry one tank per flight. So the effort to get those over is going to be something serious. You know, in terms of future donations, I will give advice to government on that, and it's based on a number of things. One, what can we do with our allies in terms of serviceability, spare parts, technical support, ammunition? We have to look at this as a collective. I've been having some deep conversations with allies over the last week, including face-to-face in Europe last week. I've talked to my German counterpart 3 times over the last 6 days, including a call yesterday to discuss this very issue. So this is where we are. I'd also like to say very, very happy with our Armored Corps, our maintainers, and those who have poured sweat and love into these tanks. And they're going to continue.
General, Russia has already upped its attacks today in response to this, saying it is an escalation. Can you respond to that? What is your response to that?
Well, Russia will use any excuse to launch further attacks, and they will grab onto any shred of credibility that they can find. But I don't put much credence in that. If they want to de-escalate, they can leave Ukraine.
Are these training ones we use for training, or are these ones that we sent on operations otherwise?
So these are Leopard 2 A4s, the same as a number of our allies are providing, including Poland. And that will allow us to have interoperability of training, of spare parts, and ammunition.
These are older tanks, though. Are these the older tanks? Are these ones we were using for training, or are these ones that we would have sent out on operations?
They are operational tanks. We've used them for training, but also many countries in the world have used them for operations as well.
How does our armor compare? How does our armor, their guns compare to the newer ones?
So I don't have those technical details, and if I did, I wouldn't be able to share them because that's something we don't want out there in terms of.
Saying, I mean, generally speaking, how are these?
So compared to what the Russians are using, T-72s, et cetera, yeah, much better.
There are reports that there's a Russian warship in the West Atlantic, the Kremlin saying that it's testing missile capability. I'm wondering what Canada is doing to monitor this ship, given its NATO and NORAD commitments.
So our intelligence is Five Eyes intelligence. So we are closely monitoring many facets and movements in that region. For our part, we are sending another frigate over into the Baltic. We are also ensuring that we continue to get our aid over there as soon as possible. Those 200 vehicles are going to be going before the summer. The 4 tanks that we've just announced will be going as soon as possible. As the chief said, we are making plans to deliver those in the coming weeks. And so, again, this is part of an overall allied effort, and I was glad that the chief mentioned that Poland is also sending the 2A4 variant. Finland is also sending that same variant. So this goes to my point about the necessity of Canada being part of the collective, a common platform of tanks that will be so important. And then finally, I will say that on training, Canada has a very strong and well-deserved reputation in the area of expertise and training, having trained over 35,000 Ukrainian armed forces members. And we are going to be sending trainers over to make sure that the gunners, the drivers, the loaders, the crew commanders, and the maintainers of these tanks are very well trained so that Ukrainian armed forces members can be the most effective possible on the battlefield.
It's a very minor number, four tanks. What is it other than symbolism and tokenism?
It's not just symbolism, especially when you think of 2 factors. First of all, we are part of a global allied collective to ensure that we are maximizing the amount of aid overall and the number of tanks that we can send. And you have to remember that this has occurred in very short order. The meeting in Ramstein was last Friday. Since that time, numerous countries have stepped up to the plate to ensure that we can all be part of this collective. Furthermore, Canada's contribution is continually being assessed in terms of the ability to get the spare parts necessary to make sure that these tanks can be maintained. I want to stress that maintaining tanks is difficult, especially in light of the complexity of this vehicle. This is not just like changing oil in a car. This is a need to make sure that we have continued flow of spare parts that are able to be received to maintain the tanks and then to utilize them where necessary, to deploy them, whether it is in terms of making sure we have Canada's readiness, whether it is ensuring, making sure that we are living up to our NATO commitments, and whether it is in terms of ensuring that we are contributing to the overall tank effort for Ukraine.
La Russie dit que c'est une escalade. La Russie dit que l'envoi de ces chars d'assaut pourrait être une escalade dans le conflit. Qu'est-ce que vous répondez à ça? Est-ce que vous craignez que ça s'envenime?
J'ai pensé à cette question parce que c'est important. La réalité est de cette guerre a changé maintenant. Ce n'est pas la même chose qu'avant. C'est une chose différente maintenant et nous devons continuer de montrer que nous sommes unis comme les alliés, les partenaires. Et le Canada joue un rôle très important maintenant et dans l'avenir, bien sûr. Nous avons vu que l'Ukraine a gagné le territoire dans le nord, dans l'est, dans le sud. Et ces chars, et surtout avec nos alliés, sont cruciaux pour la victoire. Merci beaucoup.
In English on that point, you said in French the war has changed, but you, at the outset, weren't even going to send lethal weapons, and now you're sending heavy tanks. So talk about that, how you got there.
So this conflict, this illegal invasion of Ukraine has been unacceptable from day one. That hasn't changed. But what has changed is the need to continue to support Ukraine with the military equipment that it needs in the short and the long term to secure victory and to reclaim territory. And so when Ukraine has asked for air defense systems, Canada has stepped up with air defense systems. When Ukraine has asked for armored vehicles, Canada has stepped up with armored vehicles. And now Ukraine has asked for tanks. And Canada not only is stepping up today with 4 tanks, but is continuing to evaluate what more we can do in the area of tanks and military aid overall.
You never went for that, so what's changed?
As I said, Canada's actions, Canada's contributions are part of the broader NATO commitment. And our actions are very closely tied to the actions of our allies. And that's why it's so important when you think about our tank contribution that we are sending the 2A4 vehicle tank in combination with our allies. So as I said, there is interoperability on the battlefield right from the word go with the machinery, with the equipment that we are sendending. Merci beaucoup.
Again, fight sexual misconduct victims in court.
I have to go.
No,
Thank you
but
so
that's...
much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Mr. Why did you approve that decision?
Thank you.